Welcome back to the SportsMax Zone, and the Commonwealth Games began earlier today in Birmingham, England. England's second city welcomed more than 6,500 athletes and officials who will take part in the Games over the next 12 days. Today's dazzling opening ceremony unfolded at the Alexander Stadium in front of a global TV audience over 1 billion. So George and Lance, we're going to start by discussing the opening ceremony. Of course, a lot of style, a lot of glamour, exactly what we anticipated. What did you make of the events, George?
Yeah, it was engaging. It was engrossing. It's what you'd expect from an opening ceremony in a country as wealthy and as artistically blessed as Britain is. Look, we've seen some spectacular opening ceremonies for events. We saw one for the Olympics. We saw a closing ceremony for the Olympics. And we saw the Winter Olympics in Beijing, which was absolutely superb opening and closing. So the bar was set very, very high for the Brits in terms of what the big events that they're following. And I really think in their own unique way, showcasing their culture, showing what modern day Britishness is. And yes, there is a significant hangover from what made Britain Britain and the people who were exploited to make Britain Britain. But if you're judging it purely on what you saw as a visual spectacle in terms of the opening ceremony, I think they hit the nail squarely on the head.
Lance, the city of Birmingham, known for cars and of course stylish cars. Today what I saw was amazing as well. You know, the officials and the very, very important people driving into the stadium. I thought that was super cool.
Yeah, what about the 10-meter bull?
Yeah.
That epitomized the multicultural nature of Commonwealth and Birmingham as a city. I thought all of that was pretty significant, was the high point for me. It was a bit of a surprise.
Yes, and I just want to give George also the opportunity, Lance, because he did the preview show. But, you know, for our viewers who probably was at work, George, you know, just update them on what they would have missed with you and Anil.
Oh yeah, so what Anil and I were discussing were the fact of the issue of homosexuality and how it's being said that no country that still has homophobic laws on its book will ever get to host the Commonwealth Games, and Anil rightly took issue with that and challenged that and exposed the flaw in that kind of thinking. We also spoke about the Commonwealth Games coming back to England for the first time in 20 years and the significance of that. We also spoke about the Caribbean presence, the Caribbean contribution to what Birmingham has become over time. 1.4 million people, the second largest city in Britain, and one of the most cosmopolitan places in Europe, although the Brits don't consider themselves Europeans after all, they did Brexit. But the fact is that this is a special part of the world. I don't know anybody in the Caribbean who doesn't have a relative who lives in Birmingham. I struggle to, anybody who has relatives living in England from the Caribbean, there's somebody, some relative, far-flung or otherwise, who lives in Birmingham, and it's a place that we can plug into for a vibe, and they will enjoy watching the Caribbean athletes here. So that's basically what we discussed. But as you rightly said at the top, Mariah, if they missed it, in case they missed it, they can watch the repeat later on today.
Yeah, a lot of action taking place at the Commonwealth Games, and we're only getting started, so just imagine what is yet to come. Live action gets underway on Friday with badminton being one of the feature events, and it will be one of the first events to be contested. Teams from Jamaica and Barbados are gearing up for action. So Ricardo Chambers, we told you before, Ricardo and Donald and the rest of the team, they are in Birmingham. Ricardo, he filed this report.
When competition gets going at the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games on Friday morning, badminton will be the first sport you see on your home of champions. Two Caribbean teams in action, Jamaica and Barbados in mixed team competition. Jamaica facing South Africa, Barbados taking on the host nation, England. The Barbados team of Tamisha Williams, Sabrina Scott, Kenny King and Shea Martin completed their preparations by sampling the arena show court Thursday morning ahead of their daunting opening tie against England.
Well, it was kind of intimidating, but it was good. It was good. Still have to get accustomed to the flight of the shuttle and the bright lights, but it was good.
It was definitely a great experience, you know. This being the first time for all of us, never experiencing a show court before in this grand setting. TV court, yeah, but like this, monumental. Definitely the atmosphere in here is going to be electric, and we're so ready to play on show court against England.
The Bajans will also play Singapore on Friday's opening day before closing out Group B play against Mauritius on Saturday. Whereas Friday's matches will be the first taste of Commonwealth Games competition for all four Barbadians, there is more experience in the Jamaica team. 26-year-old Catherine Winter and a 25-year-old Samuel Ricketts were both at the Gold Coast 2018 Games, and Winter is hopeful that experience will count in their opener against the South Africans.
They're decent players. I don't know them all that well, honestly. The only time I've ever seen them was at the last Commonwealth Games 4 years ago. I've never seen them again since then. But I know that they're decent players. They're definitely not unbeatable. And I think our team can definitely play very well against them.
The Jamaicans will also play Group D favourites Malaysia on Friday before ending the preliminary stage against Zambia on Saturday. And according to Talia Richardson, they have been well prepared for the games.
The team came up because another member of the team is based in England. So we came up, we trained for 2 weeks, which was really good. And just like since coming to the village and knocking on the court, you know, you really get to adjust to the drift and how the different courts are, because there are like 3 different areas that we practice. We have the practice hall, the warm-up court, and then the main court. So we've just been really able to go around and really feel how different the courts are and adjust to it.
At the end of this mixed team event, what would success look like for this Barbados team?
Well, for me, I think is playing our hearts out, representing our country and representing it at the best of our ability and do what we train the full year to do. And I think that everyone will be satisfied that they've played their heart out and represent their country well. When it's all over, success will just be me honestly doing the best that I could have possibly done, knowing that I came off the court giving it my all and I didn't hold back. So for me, that would be enough.
The top 2 teams from the 4 groups will advance to Sunday's quarterfinals. Badminton action will be live on SportsMax starting 3 a.m. in Jamaica, 4 in the rest of the Caribbean.
Thank you so much for that report, Ricardo. So, George and Lance, we heard it from the ladies, and I think the closing statements are what will, remain with me. The ladies are right. For them, it's all about going out there, giving it their all, being aware that, some of their opponents will be difficult to beat, but just what one of the girls said, they aren't unbeatable. So that she's not going into the matches with the mindset that okay, these are powerhouses and I don't have a chance. She's actually going in with an open mind, and I think that's a great way to approach it.
Well, you see, the Commonwealth Games is one of those events where the Caribbean athletes go to, and they go with a reasonable expectation, many of them, of winning a medal or making finals or playing for medals in their competition, in their events. That said, badminton is one of those sports whereas on the track especially, the world beaters aren't there, so it opens up the avenue for some of the other nations who you don't see figuring prominently at World Games, stepping forward and winning medals or making finals and doing well. Badminton is one of those sports where the best teams in badminton are in the Commonwealth, so the competition is very fierce. And Barbados, they open against Singapore. I can tell you, if that match is to go to pedigree, then Singapore should be very comfortable. But I like the optimism of the Bajans. Look, if you're going into a competition, if you're fit and ready and you aren't optimistic, then you may have given someone else your seat on the plane. So I like that there is at least optimism. And as you said, the abiding spirit, the approach going into the contest is that nobody is unbeatable. The Bajans against Singapore are rank outsiders, but stranger things that can happen. But if it goes according to form, Singapore have tremendous pedigree in this event. They should win that opening clash.
Yes, and based on the report, Jamaica will be up against South Africa. Lance, what do you make of what the ladies said in that report filed by Ricardo, and of course the Caribbean chances?
Yeah, the fact is that because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the past 2 years would have been very tough for a lot of Caribbean competitors in these sports. And as far as active competition is concerned, they really missed out a lot. Not so much a lot of the players in Europe who were able to get back into the groove of preparation and active competition during COVID, for the most part, more than the Caribbean athletes were able to. England actually have a very rich record in badminton. I think they have more badminton gold medals than any other country in the Commonwealth Games history. Having said that, the Asians, as George pointed out, are tremendously successful at the Commonwealth Games. Malaysia and India among the most successful teams in the history of the Commonwealth Games. So Singapore obviously would be a tough opponent for the Barbadians, and South Africa, not such a rich history of Commonwealth Games success in badminton, but we're pretty certain that because of the critical mass of South Africa, they would have been able to produce some badminton players that will be potent, and the Jamaicans will have a tough task. Catherine Winter, the Jamaica champion, just pointed out, as we are mentioning, that she can't really speak with any authority about knowing the quality of the South Africa team, but all she can do is, along with the rest of the team, brace herself for good, strong competition and give up her best, which is what she has promised.
And the good thing about now is that, a lot of things are on tape, they're recorded, so I would hope that the athletes would have done their research and of course studied. One of the athletes speaking, Catherine, as Lance mentioned, she also spoke about the last time she met these ladies would have been in the former
2018.
2018, the former Commonwealth Games, George and Lance. So she's just going on that, but so much time has passed, of course, different conditions and whatnot. But going in with an open mind is exactly what we expect. Look, Trinidad and Tobago on the screen.
Yeah, Michelle and Jareem with the flag. The COVID-19 would have also given an advantage to the bigger nations, the nations with more resources, because Lance spoke about critical mass where South Africa is concerned. The fact is that they could have had badminton preps, which were far more expansive than Jamaica or Barbados could afford to, because of the sheer numbers. And then it's not only that you have a lot of people to practice with, but you have a lot of high-skilled, high-quality, high-ranked individuals, as we see the Jamaican team. The
Gracing our screen.
Yeah, 6 foot. She's what? 6'8"? 6'6".
Yeah. Janine Fowler.
Yeah, she's
6'6".
She's massive in terms of talent and in terms of her height. You and I wisdom and some others.
George, as you were talking about South Africa just now and the critical mass and the sort of opportunities that they have, facilities is an issue that has plagued Caribbean countries for decades,
and continues
there will be far more badminton facilities in South Africa than there are in the entire Caribbean. So for Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean, Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago, badminton has always been a sport that hasn't really captured the imagination of the average fan in the street, and it's a struggling sport to gain recognition and gain investment opportunities from the administrators. So it's always heartwarming for me to see the Caribbean produce badminton players, squash players with regional or world-class abilities. Nicolette Fernandez from Guyana was rated in the top 20 in the world at one point in squash. And as I said, these are difficult sports for the Caribbean to flourish in. So we're anxious to see what they'll be able to do in Birmingham.
You speak of facilities, and to support that point, one of the premier facilities for badminton I was going to say the corporate area in Jamaica, but in the whole Jamaica, is the UTEC Auditorium, which is just a space. It's just a space that they play board games, they play table tennis there, they play volleyball there, they play basketball inside and behind. And it's one of the premier places for badminton. And the UTEC facility, there's a squash facility at the back of the auditorium. That's also one of the premier. But the point I'm making is it's a university facility.
It's not a specific
It's not purpose. It's not purpose
there
built.
are badminton courts at Constant Spring. There are badminton courts at the YMCA and at the Chinese Benevolent Association as well on Old Hope Road. But for the most part, badminton players struggle to find facilities.
And the thing is,
and they have to pay because it's not public.
And the reason I mentioned UTEC and its place as one of the preeminent places for badminton is that unlike the Chinese Benevolent Association, which is by appointment, you can't just walk in.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, campus is open 24 hours. The auditorium is basically open 24 hours. So you can at least go there and get a hit. Most of the other places named, not accessible like that. So it's a challenge. So we shouldn't condemn and be too harsh in criticizing our players if they can't cut the mustard against people who have facilities up to their eyelids to get themselves ready for big competition. Anyway, tune into all our platforms daily to catch live action of the Commonwealth Games from now until August